Welcome to USA Biz Party. I'm Anna Scheller, your host.
I'm Esther Ocampo, your co-host.
Host with the most. And we have Catherine Lang joining us. Catherine, I don't want to spoil the surprise about your podcast, but how can people best find you?
The best way to find me is at catherinelang.com.
Okay. Okay. And if you've been on podcasts with us before, you know that Catherine's a bit of a free spirit, which is a lot of fun, which gives us a lot of great engagement. And great insights from different perspectives. Oh goodness, I'm the only one talking now.
Well, I
Um,
apologize in advance. I have a really bad dose of the cold, and my voice may disappear at some point. So I'm just going to keep muting myself in and out because I will cough, and it's not something that everybody needs to hear.
there we go. There we go. Well, so
And
we
I
have a
just muted
couple.
myself because you called me a free spirit and now I'm trying to behave.
Oh, what fun is there in that? But today's topic may end up being a two-parter because we'll be talking about digital boundaries in our lives. And let's face it, probably an area that people either love, 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 or they hate, hate, hate is digital media, whether it's a soft social media, or it's your email, or it's text. Oh my gosh, how many times do kids just sit there and go, "Ugh." We actually have a text-free zone in our church for the youth. So the minute they come in, my husband, who's the youth leader, he looks at the kids and he says, "Ah, we need to put those away." And then he lets them know if they can take it out to do a Google search or something like that, or if a kid has to keep their phone out to talk to their parents. Those are, okay, exceptions. But I think digital boundaries, especially in the age that we live in, 20 years ago, I don't think it was as big a deal as it is now. I mean, and especially after
Definitely
COVID, when
not.
our lives were really, really ruled by digital. So if you're on with us live, I want to thank you for joining us. And somebody will be watching the feeds to really to see if we can interact with you. If not, we'll do so after the fact. But we are thankful to have you. If you are on the replay, thank you so much. Please do click the subscribe button and also the little bell so that when we create more content, you can be notified and join us. So, but again, today is all about digital boundary setting, and it's called a challenge. And why do you guys think it's a challenge? Why would it be a
Because it's
challenge?
it's so addicting. It's
Mm.
so addictive just to click that notification and see what's been said, and to, when I'm talking emails, I'm talking social media, I'm talking, anything that is on your phone or laptop or desktop, wherever, your tablet, whatever. um I, I can't cope with that little number. Now, saying that, my email has a big number, and it's now got to the point where it's beyond salvageable. But for notifications, when there's a little one, you're like, oh, and I've just come out of that app, and I've just come off that platform, and it, it gives you a sense of
I
satisfaction
know.
just to get it back down to zero.
It does. How about you, Catherine?
I think one of the biggest reasons people have trouble with that is because it's become a habit.
Hmm.
You don't break habits, you have to replace habits. So you have to do something
Hmm.
that's going to get you out of that cycle. And I almost just muted y'all and stopped the camera because I just last week set up an app that tells me every hour that I've been sitting here for working for an hour. And
Oh, wow.
I get up, I turn my music on, and I have a dance break.
Oh,
And
good for
sometimes
you.
in that dance break, I do a chore around the house, or I do, some little bit. But I had to break the habit of sitting
Mhm.
here for hours on end because my legs would fall asleep. I sit cross-legged, I sit Indian style. And so I sit cross-legged and my feet would fall asleep, my legs would fall asleep. And then I'd just be stuck here.
That's awful. Well, I think I agree. It's one, there's this thing about, I was raised as a kid that when someone speaks to you, that you're supposed to, respond back. It's polite. You give them your attention. So, what is text? Text is someone speaking to you. And I think for me, text is the hardest one because of business, because I want to be available for my children. And, right now I have a kid that's going through some stuff. So I don't want them to think like they've reached out to mom and they can't. So there's an expectation that we sometimes place on ourselves that we have to be available right now, all the time. I mean, I've answered texts I've answered phone calls at 2 a.m. These were not really, that was a smart move, but I did, you know. I don't do that anymore. I usually sleep through them. They're only, and well, we'll get to this. We'll get to this in a little bit. But the first thing is that the first recommendation that I read is that we want to have 3 zones of activity where we partition what kind of digital activity we will have in those 3 zones. So the 3 zones are the work zone, the personal zone, and what's known as a flex zone. A flex zone. Yeah, there we go, Catherine. So a work zone, of course, is anything that's going to be associated with our work. But even inside of that, and if you're watching and you're making comments, are we getting any comments, Esther? Are you tracking with any of these guys? Nothing. That's okay. But if you have, ideas, we would love for you to share those with us in the comments. So that being said, in the work zone, we still have to set digital boundaries. So let's talk about probably the one that can be the most irresistible and yet is probably the most important one to set boundaries around, and that's email. I don't know if you've heard this. However, when an email comes in, it's usually someone else's agenda for you. And if you're a particularly service-oriented individual like I am, you want to respond right away. You want to make sure that people are taken care of, right? However, there has to be a point where you say, I read somewhere that there's someone who, when they're not available, they will put their out of office response in place. And in the out of office response, it says, if this is urgent, reply to the email and the subject line say urgent, and then you should hear back from me within 30 minutes. And that helps people understand that there's a place for urgency. Now, I have to let people know what urgent is. Your internet not working is not my urgency. You turning something in at 6 o'clock at night and wanting me to give something back to you within 2 hours is not an emergency. We had that happen recently where a whole list of people was given to one of my teammates and said, I need X, Y, and Z. And the teammate was going to get down and she was going to work tonight. And I said, number one, did they put a time limit on when they needed it? Well, she says she needs it tomorrow. Great. I said, number two, when are you supposed to get off work? Well, in an hour. Are you going to be able to get this done in an hour? Well, no. And she listed all the things that she needed to do to get the information to the requesting individual. I said, isn't that something you can just do in the morning when you come to work? But what happens is we feel this urgency. We want people to know we're responsive. And the bottom line is somebody else's lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on my part. So setting boundaries around your emails is, I think, critical in this work zone space. So I'm interested in what either of you ladies have to say about it.
Yeah, I have a contact who has on all of her emails, rather than putting an out of office on constantly, she's a solicitor. So she will have, lawyer. Is that what you guys call them, lawyers? I never remember which one's which. Anyway, she has it, that she will, on all her email replies, it says, I check my emails twice a day, and at 9 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I will reply at either one of those times on a day that, when it needs to have the reply back, because if she needs to go investigating things and come back with a more detailed answer, you're not going to get it that same afternoon at 2 o'clock when she's checking her emails again. It could be 2-3 days, but she puts that in each and every email rather than having to remember to go and turn your out of office on, because I think out of office should, in my opinion, just be for when you're away on holiday, and nobody, not even an emergency, can get me off that out of office, because in my digital marketing world, an emergency doesn't really exist. There isn't water pouring down through the roof after a big storm, or there isn't somebody lying with a finger chopped off. Those don't happen in my world. I mean, your website might crash. Okay, it'll be back up when it's back up, because most of the time it doesn't rely on what I could do anyway. It's down to the servers. It's down to the wider sphere of things. If a social media post doesn't get posted, it's usually down to the platform going through issues like we always see, especially with all the updates that they do. So most of the time it's nothing that I could intervene with anyway. So like Anna said, emergencies are different for everyone. And, your website being down may be an emergency if that's where the only place that people will contact you or buy stuff from you. That's, all well and good, but you should also have backups. So.
Yes. And I like that idea, because then it gives people, now my business would be a tad different, because if somebody has something urgent, what we encourage them is if it's urgent. So if it's a toilet's not working in an apartment with only one bathroom, if there's a flood, there's flooding happening in the apartment, there's a fire, or there's a lack of, their electricity is turned off. Well, yeah, I mean, that happens. I've had stupid things happen. People should know better, but they put stuff in the microwave that will spark, right? So those kinds of things, what we tell people is to send a text. Send a text, because that will get seen. I tell people, I don't look at my email but maybe twice or 3 times a day. If you send me a text about something that's urgent and you need my attention right away, then I'll respond before 6 o'clock. So Catherine, do you have any comments about that before we move on?
It is important to have boundaries and to know your boundaries and to review your boundaries regularly, especially if you have, and this is the podcast that I was talking about, because I was dealing with a boundary pusher, and I don't even think she knows she's pushing boundaries because she doesn't speak English. But it doesn't matter what I tell her, she always wants to do it in her time. And sometimes boundary pushers do that because they want control. Sometimes boundary benders do that because they're trying to grow, and kids are known boundary pushers. And we have to know our boundaries, and we have to lock those in, review them regularly, and make sure we haven't allowed people to push us beyond our boundaries. It's kind of like you were talking about. We have to say to people, okay, this is when you can get in touch with me, and this time I am not available. I had to put a sign on my door that says, in Korean, it doesn't say it, it's written because it can't talk, but it is written in a meeting. And I had to put in a meeting because if I put a time, it's locked time. There's no negotiating. So you have to set your boundaries so that you can do what you need to do to build the business that you're trying to build. In your case, people have to be able to get to you because an emergency is truly an emergency. In my case, there is no such thing as a fire emergency for me. If you have a fire, I'm not the person to call. So know your boundaries, set your boundaries, and review regularly so you know if somebody's pushed that boundary line out past where you want it.
I think too, in the same respect, and we're going to move on to the next zone, but in that same respect, there it is that sometimes you have to reestablish those boundaries with people. You do. So this is going to make it like this is going to be a very small but very significant example. So my granddaughter, she is 9 months old, and of course she loves it when Nona comes to visit, and she raises her hands, Nona, pick me up. So I'll grab her, and then immediately she starts going toward my face. Well, she's trying to get to my glasses. And now she's only 9 months old, so I expect that I'm going to have to tell her again and again, no, the glasses stay on Nona's face. But sometimes we have to do that with our clients and our adults, well, our children, whatever. But then that moves us into the next part, which is having that personal zone where we limit, actually, we call this our place where we're focusing on relationships, on personal things. So for example, maybe you have a hobby that you love. For me, mine is gardening. And so when I'm outside, I do not take my phone. When I'm when I'm transplanting, when I'm doing fun stuff with my plants, I don't take my phone because I figure people can live without me for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or however long, right? Or if you're focusing on relationships, how discouraging it can be to somebody that you're relating to that you say, oh, I need to take this phone call. No. Now, maybe during work hours, you can say you might have to do that, but that's within your work zone. But when you're setting aside personal time, you really need to guard that time fiercely in order to make sure that you're not letting your work life intrude on your personal life. And even then, sometimes my kids understand that I may not respond to a text until 7 or 8 o'clock at night if I'm taking care of other things in my personal zone. Ladies? Esther.
We just pressed the button at the same time. No, speaking of personal boundaries, so they were knocking and scratching at the doors. That's we now have extra people in the office. People, dogs, extra bodies. But yes, I like to play games on my phone, so that really takes away the whole separation thing because all the social media management I do is on my phone. All the emails I check on my phone, messages phone, so the games on my phone, I need to have that separation more. But no, don't offer me gardening. No, thank you. We're actually we're actually thinking of tarmacking our entire garden because I don't have green thumbs. But finding that hobby is difficult for me too because I work with my husband. So having that work life balance is extra difficult because when we're like sitting in work, we're doing our separate tasks and chores and things. And then when we go in for lunch, we're talking about work because we haven't had a chance, because of doing our separate things. And then in the evening, something will pop into one of our heads and go, "Oh yeah, do you remember that?" Like, no, we need to stop doing that. So I really need to sit down and when I'm binge watching my shows, I need to set my phone aside. And because we also got into the habit using when it was Twitter, people would watch TV shows and tweet about it and go through a whole chat and everything, they did that with movies as well, and there was lots of things, football matches, everybody's on and tweeting at the same time about the things that's happening as it's going. So we just got into that habit, and it was the social media platforms that made it that we had to get into the habits. Or like I was remembering too that when Facebook would give you a prize or give you like an extra star or, top responder because you responded within, I think it was within the first hour. You're like, I need to get that. It's that dopamine hit of, I need to keep that. I need to hold on to that. So when people would reply during the night and you lost it, the despair, I mean, obviously not full on despair, but you'd think that it's one of these things that they've drilled into us now at this stage of 21 years of having Facebook, that you'd think we're over that whole dopamine hit, and we're still not. Because we love to see when somebody has liked or shared or commented or, and it's those things that keep us going back to the phone, and those things that keep us. And now that, with all the apps, and because when phones first came out, all you could do was play Snake, or you could play like sort of Pac-Man type thing. Catherine remembers. And we were playing, and you're on your phone and you would make up the ringtones, or phones have evolved so much, but it's evolved in a way that keeps us on the phone. They've obviously made a device that tethers us in to using it more and more. So yeah, I need to work on extracurricular activities that do not include my phone. So if anyone has, other activities that aren't watching TV or playing online games and gardening, not going to garden. So do let me know.
Well, how about taking a walk?
Oh, I do that, but we can't use that W word when the dogs are in the room because they'll go
Oh,
absolutely crazy. So
go
yeah, no,
visit your dead garden.
it's dead because of them. They've killed it. But no, after this, I will be going out and taking them for a nice W.
Whatever. W.
For it, yeah, because I can't even spell it anymore. They're so intelligent. But that's just a short time, and my kids will take them on their phones. I don't get it.
Yeah. Hey, Catherine, what about you? Where do you stand on all
This goes
this?
back to the whiteboard of world domination and the importance of balance for your life. If you are all in with your business, then you're out of balance. Even if your business includes your husband or includes your family, if you're all in just business, then you are out of balance. You need to have that work-life balance in order to be your best in all aspects of your business, of your life, of your relationships. And relationships are fundamental because we are called to be in relationships, and we're better and we're stronger and we're bolder when we are in relationships. That's why groups are more dangerous than an individual, because groups will spur each other on. And if you're running a race, you do so much better when you have other people encouraging you to take that next step and to keep going. So we need to find ways to get invested with others. So think about it that way, Esther. Instead of thinking about what kind of hobby can I get in? How can I get connected with other people? Maybe you play cards. Maybe you and your husband play cribbage, which is a card game. And if you don't know, it's a fun card game. If you're competitive and you like the gamification, which obviously you like gamification, then find ways to gamify your activities with puzzles, with it doesn't have to be like everybody else. It just has to be something that spurs your relationships and spurs that creative spirit in you. We all have that creative spirit, and managing that quiet time, that private time, that personal time, that space allows your creative spirit to spur, which will feed your business.
Wonderful. Yes. And it's going to look different for everybody. For me, gardening is, and the other thing I do is, it's my baby love time. Every day I make sure I hang out with that little girl, even if it's just for 30 minutes. We play, we'll go for a walk. She loves to, she has certain mannerisms that she does with me, pretty much just with me. It's kind of like our little fun time. Now the third zone is a flex zone. So sometimes we can't really, we can be doing things that build us up, that edify us, but also can benefit work. So let's talk about something like the game of golf. Golf is supposed to be, I don't know this. I'm not a golfer, but my understanding is it's a great game, not just for relaxing. It's a great game for building relationships, and it can also be. Um, I thought, yeah, it's too funny. But it can also be a time for building business relationships. Now, I will tell you, I would not advise taking a phone onto the golf course because it's a game that requires concentration. Or maybe you're listening to a podcast. So there are places where there's a little bit of mix, but still you have to be the one to set the boundaries on what that mix looks like. Are you going to accept texts from family during that time? Yes or no. If you are, you can do what I just did with a family member and say, I'll be available to talk to you between, 6 and 7. Other than that, I'm not available. And then, they understand. Well, hopefully, if they're mature enough. But regardless, so there's a place of mixing. But even in that mix, you really do need to you really do need to set boundaries, for lack of a better word, which is what we're talking about, but set boundaries around what is permissible to you and how other people can communicate with you without intruding. And maybe part of your flex time is a game. So I actually do put a timer on myself, which we'll get to here. But I do put a timer on myself for how long I'm on the game. I've got there are 3 games that I just absolutely love to play. But when I get to a certain time of day, so I usually play these games between like 6:15 and 6:30 in the morning. When I get to 6:30, I'm like, okay, done. And then I move on to like my Bible reading or something like that. What do you guys think about flex?
Well, I have joined groups on Facebook that totally unrelated to business. There's one that's called Mexicans in Northern Ireland because my husband's Mexican and living in Northern Ireland. So there's a whole bunch of people, and like it's open to all Latinos, and we share advice and things about where to get the best tortillas and the essential things that you miss from home whenever, well, I call it home as well because I lived there for 12 years, but the things that you miss from places like that. And we've met up a few times and have done some cultural things like Independence Day on the 16th of September, not Cinco de Mayo. And we've done a few, not Cinco, no, 16th of September. And we've done a few things like picnics in the park and things just to get to know each other. And I've been a member of that group now for about 10 years since coming home from Mexico. And I have got business out of it because we've met and talked about non-business things. And they've remembered that, oh yeah, this is the one that can, help and do this and has the digital marketing agency and, they can help us with this. And if not, then she might know somebody local because she's also local. And, you get to know people through like different interests and things. I'm not a card player, but I'm very competitive when it comes to games. So I don't like to play with others because I don't like to hurt their feelings. Even my kids, I will not let them win when we're playing things like Monopoly. And no, you have to learn that, there are winners and losers and you have to learn to play the game. So much so that there are a few games that they refuse to play with me anymore because I always win. But yeah, when it comes to other activities or other events, it is important to expand your friendship base. I think is important. Like if I had any interest in golf, now would be the perfect time to do it because a guy from my country, Northern Ireland, has just won the Masters, Rory McIlroy. So there's going to be a huge uptake in golf locally, but it doesn't interest me at all. And I know like there are people who do use it for getting ahead in business, and other people use the gym, and other people, I mean, everyone to, themselves. I'll go and have a picnic in the park and meet people. That'll be my thing.
How about you, Catherine?
Ditto with the golfing. That has just never, first of all, you have to be quiet. It's kind of like fishing. I can't go fishing. I'll talk to the fish. And apparently you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be quiet and reserved. And that is not in any of my bios anywhere. So I find what works for you. And here's the thing. If you find what works for you, odds are pretty good that you're going to find the people that you want to work with. When you are investing in things that are outside of your realm of interest, one, you'll get burned out, and two, you'll attract the wrong type of person. If it is something that you truly do not enjoy, then don't do it. I mean, flex time is not about giving into them. It is about finding the bridge between your personal time and your business time that allows you to grow both.
I love that. I love that. If you find something you enjoy, you'll find the people that you love to work with. I love that. I do love that. Well, the next point is to identify personal trigger points. This is probably, I don't know, I think this is a little tougher because we have to get real. uh, Am I? Oh, okay, it's just the topic, right? The topic is not very, yes. So let's think that when we're talking about identifying and dealing with personal trigger points, what are those situations or emotions that tend to drive us to engagement? What what tends to drive us to playing on our phone? What tends to drive us to Twitter? What tends to drive us to whatever news app that you love? Um, what are those things? And let's not throw out the idea that we get validation from the emails. We get validation for the likes and the the reposting and all of the things that go with all of that stuff. Or maybe you just get off on arguing with people on X. What is well, probably not this group here, but there are people that just love to stir up things and, and their dopamine rush is like, oh, I got somebody to, fight with me, argue with me. So what are some I mentioned a couple, one being the validation that we get from other people who might be agreeing with us on social media or on our email. But what are some of the personal triggers that we have to, and how do we find them? Here's the thing. How do we find these triggers? Because honestly, how many of us just sit down and go, well, gee, I wonder why I did that? That's an important piece too. Oh, good. Catherine's ready.
Oh, it's not so much that I was ready. I was raising my hand to say I'm one of those that does that. I try to do that. I have a folder sitting next to me. I call it my focus flexibility folder. It comes from the whiteboard of world domination. And every night I look at what did I accomplish in each of because I have 4 areas of balance. And what did I accomplish? And what can I grow? How can I grow from what I didn't accomplish? Because we get fixated on what we don't do instead of giving ourselves credit for what we do. And if we would give ourselves credit for what we do, then we would be able to do a lot more because we wouldn't be fixated on what we don't do. So it fuels us. And I think it's important to look at and review what you did, what you accomplished, because if you'll do that, if you'll review what you did each day, then you'll be able to find your triggers. You'll see your triggers. You'll know that, hey, if somebody shows up on at noon, then odds are pretty good I am not going to get anything else done that day because my motivation starts um in the morning. I'm more motivated in the morning. And if somebody throws me off my game midday, then it's really hard for me to get going again. So the more you review, the more you'll recognize your triggers.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Esther.
Yes, I know that for myself, it's boredom that takes me to the phone in the evening. But I would rather, this sounds a little counterintuitive, but I would rather lift the phone than lift the bag of sweets, than lift the bag of candy, than lift the popcorn, than lift, it's like digging your hand into something. It keeps my fingers occupied. I have never been a smoker, but I hear something similar. When they quit smoking, they need to find something else for their hands to do. If I quit using my phone in the evening, I would be a lot um a lot larger, thanks to snacking. But it keeps my, oh, like I said, I play games on it. I play things like Sudoku. I play, word games and mind games. So I'm keeping my mind active. I tell myself that anyway. But yeah, like I said at the start, it is getting rid of that number is the motivator for me as well, where it says, you've got 4 notifications and just need it down to 0. I cannot, I don't want to have the notifications on my phone. The email sits on a different slide, a different page of my phone. So I don't see the very high number all the time. Otherwise, I would do something to remedy that as well. But it is definitely a numbers game for me and a boredom thing, keeping my fingers out of the out of the pie.
Well, it's important to understand what those triggers are. So if we want to do something about it, again, this is about if you want to do something about it. Are you wanting to be more productive? Are you wanting to make sure? So for me, focus is a huge piece. Focus is an extremely large piece for me. So that's why the 90-minute rule that I talked about earlier, that's super important for me because I feel like I can do anything for 90 minutes. And honestly, I can get a ton of stuff done. And then when I'm done, I have a digital notebook. I write down where I left off. So it doesn't take me 15 minutes to get started up again. Now, we can also create physical and digital barriers. And my son is very good at doing this, or he was for a while. So I remember we were at his house in Ohio for Christmas. And I had my phone nearby because my team was off. So I wanted to make sure that if anybody had an emergency, I took care of it. So I had the phone at the table. And oh, Catherine, you guys don't see Catherine's face, but he was angry. He was very angry with me. And I was so consumed by trying to take care of the situation that I really didn't pay attention. So my husband afterwards, he sits me down and he goes, honey, didn't you realize that Caleb has a no phone zone there? And I said, nobody told me that this is a no phone zone. So now that he understands my business a little bit more, he allows me to keep the phone a distance where I have to actually excuse myself from the table, get up and go to the phone. But I've also learned that just because I hear the ding doesn't mean I have to answer. And another digital barrier can be that you turn your phone, you just turn it to vibrate. You put it in a different room. When on my Slack messages, one of my digital barriers is when I'm in that 90-minute window, I let my team know I'm not available. And I pause notifications for the hour and a half that I'm working. So these are all little things. They're not huge things that you can do. We're not talking about you have to change your entire lifestyle in order to gain control of your life. But if the digital world has consumed you, then think about how you can gain control back of your life so that you're not driven by notifications. You're not driven by Siri. You're not driven by any of these other distractions. I mean, there's a place for digital work. We live in a world that is driven digitally, but that doesn't mean I am enslaved to the digital world, and I can set boundaries I can even have a room where no electronics are allowed. Now, I don't do that. I personally don't do that. I've got kids across the world that I want them to have access to me whenever. So like, for example, my phone, there are certain people who can only certain people can contact me when my phone goes to sleep. And that's just family. They're the only ones that can contact me in the evening after my phone says you're done. But the phones even have like focus time and sleep time and do not disturb. Ladies, what is your thought? Who wants to talk first? Esther.
Yes, I'll go first. I have set because I was one of the people that, contact me anytime and I will reply at any time. But the minute my phone tells me I should be in sleep mode, nothing gets through, except, like Anna said, the emergency numbers, my top contacts can call me. I was recently in San Diego for Social Media Marketing World, and at that point we were 7-8 hours behind our usual schedule, and I was sharing a room with my travel buddy and podcast co-host, and her phone rang at 2:00 in the morning San Diego time, because it was somebody that needed her at 9:00 in the morning. And I was like, why don't you have it turned off? Like on mute. She goes, I do, but if they ring in quick succession, then the phone thinks it's an emergency. It definitely wasn't an emergency. I didn't hear it, thankfully, but I have that. TikTok has recently introduced a setting that you can say how long you want to be on at any given time. I'm not sure. I can't remember because I only just set it up the other day. If it's per day that you say that you want to be on for 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever, or if it's each time you go on that you go on for a maximum of that, and then you have to put in a code to get to the next part. But things like that are really good with our kids. They're teenagers now, but we still have them that they can only have 15 minutes unlimited every day on Snapchat. And if they want any extra after that, they have to ask permission. And they have to have completed certain things like their homework, their chores, their, taking the dogs out. They're still here. But done what we've needed them to do before any extra time is given. And now that they're on vacation for Easter, for spring break, they're asking to get all day. I'm like, no, because I know that you will be glued to the thing, and anytime I go to talk to you, you'll still be glued to it. So, but another good thing that the phones have, if it's too close to the face now, it'll stop the video that they're watching or whatever they're doing, and they'll put a thing over the top to say the phone is too close and to move it away. So all of these things, technology and the tech firms are actually implementing themselves because they know that we've got to the point 20 odd years later where we need to have these things either forced on us or hinted to us. But I'm the same. When I need to go on to, do not disturb mode, I have it on right now because without fail, messages, phone calls, everything comes in when I'm recording. And it has to be on when I am doing videos, when I'm recording the podcast that I run. I will always turn my phone on to like sleep mode or focus mode or one of them. And there are times that, I turn it on for the hour that I'm going to be busy, or I just turn it on and forget to turn it off. So it's good that way.
I love that tech companies are conscious of the fact that they, it's really a level of social responsibility. They can't
It
make
is.
you do it, but at least they're providing the kinds
tools.
of, they're giving you tools
Yeah.
to take back your time, if you will. Catherine, how about you?
Well, first of all, I think part of the reason that tech companies are doing what they're doing is because the governments are threatening to do it for them, because almost all the leaders of the tech company knew what an issue it was. And that's why their own kids were never allowed the digital products that everybody else is addicted to. My thing is, if you cannot leave your phone at home, then you have an issue. We have become so dependent on it. I can remember I traveled from North Alabama all the way to South Alabama every weekend, both ways, because I went to school in South Alabama, and I never had a phone with me. And I survived the trip every single time. For some reason, we have become so glued to the digital products that we miss the world. And you can stop and ask somebody for directions if you if your phone is so attached to you that you can't accidentally leave it at home for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, then you might want to reevaluate how you're spending your time and how dependent you've become on. There is no business on the planet that can't survive for 30 minutes. You can go to the restroom without your phone. And please, for all of us out there, go to the restroom without your phone.
You're talking about those funny noises that can come across the phone. Okay, this
That's a
is our
public
clean
service
show.
announcement that everybody needed to hear.
Exactly. Well, it was so funny because when I was super addicted to my phone, I mean, I still have to make sure. I mean, there are times I've walked away without my phone and I thought, blessed assurance, tranquility is mine, because I mean, it gets tiring to be. It was to the point that I dreaded my phone, but I had it with me anyway. And there was this one time where I left my phone at my church, and there's a lady, she's a really good friend, but she decided that she was going to hide my phone and she was going to make me pay a ransom for it. And she said, "How much?" So when I got back to the church, she said, "Oh, how much would you pay for it?" I said, "How much do you want?" That's how bad it was. It was terrible. Um, but the truth is that now that I'm more mature, and all honestly, too, when it comes to my business, I have people that I delegate stuff to. So for example, after 6 o'clock at night, I don't mess with my phone. I will check. I will check for emergency situations every maybe 2 hours. But see, I've got somebody already watching for that stuff for me. I have another team member, and I spoke about her a little earlier, where if somebody contacted her at 8 o'clock at night and wanted, let's say, an invoice for them, they're like, "Oh no, I have to have it," and she would do it. And I said, "Why do you do that?" Their lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on our part. You need to tell them, number one, maybe have a message, a voicemail that says, "Hi, this is so and so. Thank you for calling. Um, if you have if this is an emergency, please send a text. If not, we'll get back with you first thing in the morning when we open back up." So then people know that they're being heard, but they don't necessarily. But it's because sometimes we have to set boundaries on other people. Not sometimes. We always have to set boundaries on other people. And we're almost to the top of the hour. So what I was thinking, ladies, is I have like four more talking points that we could go through when it comes to digital boundaries that I think are real important. So I'd like to defer the rest of our conversation to next week and just give people some time to interact with us about this. We'll be putting out some clips and different things. Esther will take care of that. But I want to challenge our listeners. I want to challenge those who've been watching. What are some areas of your life that you think, oh my gosh, we would love to hear from you, and we would love to incorporate your ideas into this live stream or the podcast, however you're listening to us. So make comments about it. Share this with somebody that may be struggling in this area with digital boundaries. I can't think of a person right now who doesn't, except maybe, no, my husband does. He has trouble. Shh, don't tell him. But but then he'll leave his phone somewhere and I'll call him and I'm like, thinking something's wrong because he hasn't responded to me. Well, it turned out he left the phone in his car. He got in trouble for that one. So I was like, I generally don't demand, but when you don't respond and I need to talk to you, it's kind of important because I'm a big deal for him. So anyway, Any last comments before we close out today's live stream? Nope.
Balance. You need balance in your life. You cannot have a success in any aspect of your life without balance, and balance will be unique to you and unique to this season for you.
Love that. Love that. Balance. I do. And I love you're talking about seasons. So there are times, when things need to take precedence. So for example, my company just got through an extremely busy time. And I wasn't even I really didn't even have time to breathe. There was just so much going on. But right now, I'm looking at my schedule going, from this time to this time, I can spend working on the personal things that I had to let go of during this period because I have the bandwidth for it. So I love that. I love that. As we're getting ready to sign off, I want to say again, thank you for joining us, whether you're on X or YouTube. We love having you here with us. We would love to hear from you. So please make comments in the chat, whether you're on X and you're just commenting to this video, making replies to the video itself, or you're on YouTube and you're posting inside the chat. We would love to hear from you. And who knows, you might get a shout out during our next show. So we really appreciate having you. And I guess let's bring everybody back on so we can all say goodbye. Take care.
Bye,
God
everyone.
bless. Yep. Next week, we're going to continue talking about digital boundaries. We're going to be talking about alternative behavior patterns. And then we're going to be talking about communication boundaries. We've touched on some of that today. We're going to go deeper next week. So join us next week, same time, 12 noon Central Standard Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for your favorite trio. Thank you.